Hey YouTube, thank you so much for joining me in today's video. My name is Nisi and I'm an astrology enthusiast, and I also just turned 24 years old yesterday, and I have coffee in my system. And I'm in the back of a Stop and Shop parking lot, so it's going to be pretty busy. But I just finished my 12th house profection year, and this was one of the most intense experiences in my life so far. So I wanted to share and connect a little bit with those who may be going through it, or those who are currently going through it right now, or maybe entering it. I wanted to share what the experience may be like for you. But the first thing I want to explain is what a 12th house perfection year is. Because in astrology, we have perfection years, and based off of where you are from the age of 0 to when one will pass, each age is associated with a particular house in astrology. And it just so happens that the ages of 11, 23, 35, 47, and so on, that those are your 12th house years. And during the 12th house years, because we know the 12th house is associated with things like the subconscious mind, hidden enemies, spirituality. It is the house furthest from the first house, which is all about self and the physical appearance, the outward expression into the world. So it is truly one's spiritual essence and experience. So some other themes of the 12th house have to do with loss. They also have to do with rest, with one's mental health, with one's subconscious mind, surrender, etc. So before you enter your 12th house perfection year, you want to know what sign is ruling over your 12th house, because each sign has a different time lord or ruling planet. So for instance, as a Capricorn rising or ascendant, that means Sagittarius is ruling over my 12th house, which means Jupiter is ruling over the 12th house as well. So that would change the themes and experiences from person to person. Now, we also have people with different planets in the 12th house, which can also change how an individual may experience this year, right? Okay, so a little about my experience is, firstly, I thought because I studied astrology for years that that I was almost going to be immune from whatever the universe had to show me this year, right? So I thought because I knew what the 12th house was, I already knew some of the areas things were going wrong in my life. I'm generally a self-aware person. I thought that it's not going to be as scary. It's not going to be as intense as other people explain it to be. And man, was I wrong. Completely wrong. Like, I am a completely different person than who I was at the start of my last birthday. And I'm happy for that, but it was definitely very intense. So firstly, I started this year off with a full head of hair, and as you can see, that definitely has changed, but we'll get into that later. There are so many things that I have lost during this year, and I don't want to scare anybody. I don't want to scare anybody because when we think of loss, we think of just being stripped away of everything we know and love. But in reality, I feel like this year just brings clarity as to what you should be prioritizing. So a lot of the things that we're focusing on way too much, and maybe we're oblivious to how that is sabotaging us, it kind of gets ripped away from us. I'm just going to be honest with you. It gets pulled away from us this year. It's almost as if you're not willing to give it up yourself and see why this is an issue. The universe is just going to force you into changing that. So I started this year off training to be a flight attendant, and I had just come from Jamaica. I was on a vacation, and I thought I had a clear plan for myself. I said, yeah, I'm not going to continue college this year. I'm just going to get this position, and that did not go. How I planned it at all. In fact, I really messed that opportunity up for myself because I had a lot of beliefs at the time, and I didn't necessarily understand that they weren't appropriate, or not everybody else feels the same way that I do or has the same outlook in the world. So it was really a time where something I thought I needed and wanted for myself so badly was kind of torn away from me at my own expense. And that was the start of the isolation, so that I could really assess, so that I could challenge my beliefs, so that I could be more compassionate towards others. And it was pretty difficult. So we started off on that theme. That started the theme of isolation because I had to put myself in check. And from there, things started getting more difficult. I was getting a taste of the real world. Now, when I was going through my first 12th house perfection year, man, why are these people coming by all of a sudden? So, when I was first going through my 12th house perfection year at 11 years old, this was actually a very, very traumatic experience for me. Um, and I think a lot of Capricorn ascendants, we have a level of self awareness from a very early age. So, unfortunately, while many can't recall some of these events, I can very, very vividly. Except until 23 years old, I kind of blocked off just how traumatic the age of 11 was for me. It was a year where I started pulling my hair out and dealing with a lot of depression. And you can imagine how devastating it is for a young girl to be going bald and going through all these changes, like moving schools, not having friends. And somebody that I became close to during that year actually ended up passing away. And I remember her death. It was just it was just so amazing and surreal to me how you could watch someone be alive and so vivid and youthful, and then within the next few days I watched this young girl pass away and be buried, and those images of her were forever ingrained. And since the 12th house year has to do with the subconscious mind, I didn't necessarily understand just how badly that memory of her traumatized me and how I connected with other people. So I had to sit alone with those thoughts this year. At 23, 12 years later, those dreams were coming up heavily. I would see her. I would dream about her being in my apartment. I would dream about having a chance to save this young girl, and obviously that was not a reality, but um, that's an example of many things that I suppressed in my subconscious, and they were coming up in ways, they were sabotaging me in ways, they were sabotaging connections I had with making friends, and I almost got a second shot at trying to repair other relationships based off of these fears that I was having. And it was not fun. It was not fun. I actually had to deal with a lot of paranoia associated with death because death was a recurring theme this year. I lost 4 people in total that were mentors to me, and I'd also lost longtime friends of mine this year. And it was hard to cope with. It was. I became very angry. I became very bitter this year, and I became very closed off. I was also very on edge, right? Because this is also a year at 23 where we're going through so many different changes. So to have to deal with these themes at such a vulnerable age, it started to shape me into somebody that I was not recognizing. So because of how intense things got, I didn't want to work. I didn't want to be out there in the world. I just wanted to be alone. I would go to work and I'm in my head. I can't even talk to people because of how caught up I am. I would try and be by myself, like going to drive, and then I'm having issues with my car, or I get into a car accident, and that's another story. So my sense of safety and being alone, like this is my baby here, was stripped from me. It was almost as if I was imprisoned, right? So I would go home. Sometimes I would want to rest for a couple of days and not be at school and not be at work. And I'm having issues with my neighbors. There's so much noise, it's just unbearable. So a lot of times you would just catch me with my headphones in, just ignoring everybody. That was my way of coping this year, to be honest with you. As you can see, and as you can hear, it is very, very intense. I definitely had to question how self-aware I thought I was when most of these things I didn't even know were hurting me so badly. Um, so it was a very painful year. Yeah, it was very intense. It was. That is the best word to describe it. I feel so much stronger after going through it, and I know that this year is still going to be um, a year of being alone, being by myself. Even if I have good friends and people around me, it's still going to have to focus on that theme. What I'm grateful for at 23 was all of that time I spent alone gave me the chance to know what hurt me, what works for me, what doesn't work for me, what makes me angry, what I don't like, what I do like. And I am now able to advocate for myself in a way that I never knew how to. And I'm grateful for that. Like, I'm fiery, like, I'm passionate, okay? The same things that my young self would have went through, you can no longer put me through that again. My hair, which I explained briefly, um, this began at 10 years old, and it got really bad at about 11, which was when I was going through the transition between schools. And up until 24 years old, I am still pulling my hair, and it's my way of coping with anxiety. So all of the stress from this year led me to actually shave my hair because of how bad the pulling was getting. And I try not to get emotional talking about this, but it's hard. My hair has been tied to my identity for so long, and I have no control over this. I didn't decide that I wanted to pull my hair. It's just, it is a disorder. It's very hard talking about this, so excuse me. But for the first time in years, I had a healthy, full head of hair on my head, right? I have very coily hair, very beautiful, curly, voluptuous hair. And it finally started to grow in, and I found all these ways to cope. And then halfway through this 12th house perfection year was when these stressors and triggers started coming up, and I was in intense therapy, and I started to pull again. I was very angry at myself. I was very hurt, and I ended up shaving it off. And I'm very beautiful, right? Not to be cocky or anything, but I am a gorgeous woman, except I had to let go of letting my hair define my femininity. So it's a journey. Again, it's very painful, but here we are. I'm still rocking. Some of the most positive things that I learned this year are that spirituality, your connection to your spirituality, it is different from person to person. So while I was looking for mentors and for teachers and for guidance from people, it was something that I was supposed to be crafting for myself as well. So I taught myself to not neglect my spiritual health too, and to search for these lessons all throughout life. Different people from different religions and different beliefs and different countries, everybody has their own experience. So it is about what you can learn from people. I also learned to embrace my heritage, my roots of Jamaica and Europe, and that was always an issue for me growing up. And it was like I started to embrace that on a whole different level. I started to learn about different languages. I started to just become passionate about different cultures, and it caused me to be so much more open-minded than I was in previous years. And I'm happy about that too. I'm happy. I have a unique identity, and I'm here to embrace that, right? I also got to travel, and through travel, it was my way of restoring myself. So when I would be in Jamaica, I would take walks on the beach. I would recharge myself in the ocean. I would listen to different music. I would let the sun just wake me up and go for a walk on the beach first thing in the morning, and that was amazing to me. It gives me this desire to be able to live like that someday. Since I had to spend so much time alone, I had to validate myself. I had to be okay with what I was doing with my time. And this slowly burnt out the desire to have other people's validation and acceptance, because I had no choice but to do it for myself. So I became and am still becoming independent on a whole different level. And I'm very grateful for that, because we all deserve that. We deserve the best friendships, relationships, and people around us, but we also have to be that for ourselves first. And this year it was like that was what the universe was trying to teach me. So I'm much more confident than I once was. Yes, let's not be mistaken. The 12th house year is very intense. It is very scary. It is very painful, and it is going to be different for every single person. But at the same time, it is about what you can learn from it. And my biggest advice to anybody that is about to go through these years are: number one, prioritize rest. Exercise too. Make sure you're treating your body well. This is a lot of stress. We talk about how our body can be physically stressed through gaining weight and getting injured and things, but we also don't acknowledge all the time just how much processing emotions and trauma can physically wear us down. So this is why I emphasize taking care of your body, taking care of your health too. Another thing is surrender, right? When I say surrender, I don't mean lose utter control of your life. If there is something you're holding on to or something you're relying on to give your life definition that is just not you, this is the time to release it. This is the time to let it go. This is the time to define yourself. This is the time to dig deeper about yourself and discover what is actually you versus circumstantial things. The universe has better plans in store, right? When you show up, when you try your best, when you're working hard, sometimes at a young age we get so caught up on what we know currently, or that ego shows up and we think we know everything. It's that youthful pride. And sometimes God or the universe is trying to show up and give us better, but we keep clinging on to what we know for dear life. And when you finally learn to release things, or when God has no other way of trying to get you to understand those signs, sometimes it's ripped from you. But you have to remember, when you're experiencing that when you keep an anchor, when you and God are close together, when you have that relationship with God, when you have that relationship with that higher power, it will show up for you times 10. It will multiply for you times 10. So really stay anchored in your spiritual connection and express gratitude and be thankful. When God is trying to show us these signs, people did not get these lessons. There is an abundance of information and knowledge that is available to the youth of this generation. And I remember that when I think I know everything, when it is time, when I am called to surrender certain things that are no longer for me, I remember that. So all in all, I'm wishing anybody that is about to experience a 12th house perfection year the best time with it. Do not be too hard on yourself, and just remember, we are all here on a journey of self-discovery. Life really is, spirituality really is what you make it. So just keep that in mind as you go through this journey. But that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me on this video. If you liked it, make sure to give me a like and subscribe to my channel, and I will definitely be back with more videos like this. Feel free to leave a request too if there's anything else that you would like to know about, or any of my personal experiences with astrology that you would like to hear about. Well, that's all. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope you have a good day.